We'll begin with the Conservative Party, and we begin with Mrs. Thomas for 6 minutes, please.
Thank you. Mr. Menzies, in your opening remarks, you made the following comment. You said, quote, "In Canada, we now have a news ecosystem in which most of our journalists could soon have at least half of their pay dependent on government, Google, and any other offshore money the CRTC might come up with. Given that the two most powerful entities in our society are governments and large data vacuuming tech companies, this is not where we want to be." It seems that you are raising concern with regard to big tech and big government colluding to provide $100 million to the news industry, and the fact that there is, in fact, a power imbalance when big tech is included in the equation. Can you expand on your comments a little bit more?
Sure. Well, I mean, unfortunately, one of the things that didn't get addressed the way C-18 ended up was the power imbalance issue. I had quite a bit of sympathy for that. Philip Crawley used to raise that issue quite elegantly before this committee and before Senate Transportation Committee. So yeah, we're left without that. I don't think. I mean, Google would have to speak with its intentions regarding the fund. But putting the media in a position, which is the path we're going down right now, of being dependent both on taxpayers' money and taxpayers' benefits and on big tech money, the two most powerful entities in our world that we need media to hold to account, is just what I'm saying, not where we want to be. We want to move forward, and that's what I'm trying to encourage here, is people to think forward as to how we can get past these hurdles, this roadblock that we've ended up with, this dead-end road that we've ended up with C-18, and move forward to a place where, you know, the uniform jobs can happen and we can be flourishing and journalists can, you know, be serving who they want to serve, which is readers and citizens. So yeah, that's basically where we're at with that. I don't think you have to, and also in terms of that, you don't have to like big tech to realize that. I mean, you look at the Post's editorial the other day, which went on about how terrible Google is, you know, and talked about some of the things like the antitrust suits in the States, and then said, we look forward to being great partners with them. That's where we are.
Thank you, Mr. Menzies. I guess my follow-up to that then would be, look, Google went into a back room. They entered into a deal with the government. They said that they would give $100 million to a collective of their choosing. I find that very interesting. So you have a big tech company that is going to ultimately determine, you know, which collective, if there are multiple, which collective they're going to enter into this bargaining agreement with. They're going to hand them off $100 million, and then that's supposed to go towards the perpetuation of news in the nation. Now, the minister has announced that the CBC has 1/3 of all the journalists in the country, and according to the regulations, we know that the money is supposed to be allocated according to the number of journalists that are in each office. So the CBC having 1/3 then of the journalists in the country would stand to gain $33 million. They already gained $1.4 billion in taxpayer money, and then they have access to another $400 million through advertising revenue. And then now the most recent Liberal announcement, $129 million in tax benefits. And so I'm curious about your comment that you made in your opening remarks with regard to the CBC and the fact that we actually can't level the playing field until they are omitted in terms of their ability to generate ad revenue. And you also state that they should be excluded from Bill C-18 or the $100 million that Google is granting. Can you comment on that further?
There's a bunch there, but I'll start with the fund. In the paper that I mentioned that Conrad and I authored, we did suggest that there could be a Canadian Journalism Fund. We also suggested that CBC should be excluded from that because it would be double dipping of a variety in terms of that, and also that only companies whose primary business was the creation of news would be eligible. That would allow the fund to focus directly on those companies that are most exposed on news, not necessarily companies who do 80, 90% entertainment programming and then do news on the side, but that this fund would go directly to that group. In terms of the CBC, it strikes me as odd that nobody seems to understand that when you put your thumb on the scales of an industrial framework to the extent that the CBC public funding does in terms of the commercial competition, that wouldn't distort the marketplace. I can't imagine the auto industry being able to function properly if the government said, okay, everybody level playing field, except we're going to give a subsidy here to Chrysler, and they can compete with you for car sales the same way as anything else, or the restaurant industry or the food industry or anything like that.
30
So,
seconds.
like I said,
You have
I'm not
30
opposed
seconds
to
left.
there being yes, thank you. I'm not opposed to there being a public broadcaster, but we have a two-headed monster, and we need to bring that to an end. Nothing can really happen good for the news industry until we fix that.
You now have 11 seconds, so I think we're, Mrs. Thomas, you
want me to keep
use
talking for
your
11 more
5?
seconds?
No.
I can fill it up.
No, that's okay.
Yes,
You now
Mr.
have 2
Menzies.
more seconds. 1 second, I think.